Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello, is it me you're looking for?
Okay. That was different. Thank you, Lionel Richie. What inspired that? What the hell just happened here?
I'm running out of the different variants of the hello. So I thought, let me throw a complete curveball and do a Lionel Richie.
Oh, all right. This is a great start. So I'm already thrown off completely. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna go ahead today or on this episode. We're gonna talk about one of the staples of the 1980s movie cinema going experience, and that is the car chase. And Lou, I'm sure you're very familiar with car chases.
It's funny because I was thinking back of car chases in the 80s, and I can think of a few that were famous like in the 70s and even 60s. But I was having a hard time coming up with some of the 80s. I did come up with the list, but I did definitely cheat using the internet.
All right, well, your cheating ways. I was thinking of more of the car chases you took the cops on in the
Oh,
80s
yeah.
in Carlo. So those count.
O.J. Simpson style car chases, perhaps.
Yeah, and that was the 90s, wasn't it?
It was. It was.
All right. Well, we'll leave OJ out of it then. He didn't quite make it. Can you mind if I start?
Go for it.
Go for it. All right. Well, first one I wanted to mention. I don't even know if you've ever seen this movie. I recently rewatched it. It's not one of those movies that I've ever thought was really that good, and I love '80s action movies. But this car chase scene was pretty cool. And I'm talking about the 1986 movie Cobra with
Nice. Yeah, that's on my
Sylvester
list,
Stallone.
bastard.
All right, so I'm already screwing you up. He's driving the 1950 Mercury, which looks like a tank. Um, the chase scene, the car chase scene is really great, but really what sealed it for me is the use of nitrous. Yes, he uses nitrous.
That's too funny, man. Yeah, I don't remember a lot about that movie. I remember really liking the car. I was not. I'm still not a huge fan of lead sleds, and that's what that sort of style of car is, where it's a big Mercury and they chop the top and they make it all sort of seamless. But I do remember just really liking the car and the part that the car played and everything. And the poor car just got thrashed throughout the entire movie. But yeah, super, super cool car. And yeah, a lot of action-packed car chases in that movie
With nitrous.
with nitrous. Yes.
The reason I've got to explain this, why Lewis found that so funny, is I've always appreciated cars, but I've never been a car guy. You'll never see me, like knowing much about cars. I'm kind of a moron. I like cars, but I don't know much about them. And we were at a car show, and I think it was even in the 80s too. It was in Foster City, if I remember correctly, and we were walking by a car, and I just happened to say out of the blue, I said, "Oh, look, they're running nitrous." And Lewis was so completely shocked that I knew anything about a car and that I would even know what nitrous was. And it just stopped him dead in his tracks. So he didn't really know what to do or what to think after that. So it's kind of become this running joke with us. So he must be running nitrous. And that's one of the things about that Cobra that I thought was so funny. Plus, Sylvester Stallone had the most unheroic name ever. Of course, Cobra. It was actually Cobretti, but do you remember what his first name was in the movie?
Lieutenant Martin. Marion.
Marion.
Marion. I'm sorry, not Martin.
Marion.
Marion.
Yeah, so you had to be tough if you were named Marion. At least in the 80s you did.
Yeah, I didn't know that he actually wrote that movie. He's the one that wrote the script for it, and it's like, wow, I had no clue.
It's really funny though if you know anything about LA. You watch the chase, and it appears that it starts off in downtown LA. Okay. Then it goes to Venice. and then it goes, and then it's at the docks, like at the ports. It's like none of those are close to anything or to each other, and that would have been like the longest, one of the longest car chases in the history. But how, through the movie magic, we seamlessly transition to downtown Venice to the ports, and very interesting. Again, if you know Los Angeles, which I sadly do, you would know how completely impossible that would be. But still a great car chase scene.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's probably going over most people's heads. It definitely wouldn't be something that I would recognize. So, the next one that I'm going to call out, I remember reading about this in the Guinness Book of World Records when I was, I don't know, I must have been in Burrell. It's the Blues Brothers, and of course Belushi and Aykroyd were in that one, and they had the world record at the time for the most cars destroyed in any single movie. They were at 104 cars, which was bettering the Gone in 60 Seconds version of in 1974, which I didn't even realize that that was a remake that they did in the 90s. So it bettered it by 11 cars. And I do remember reading about that in the Guinness book, and it's crazy. I remember it being just a lot of cop cars that are just flipped over and crashed into each other, and pretty crazy stuff. And at the end of the whole car chase, their car stays intact until they step out of the car, and then the thing just collapses. Like, I just had too much. I'm done.
I haven't seen that movie in a very long time. I remember that car chase scene. I'm sure you could go back and look at some of these movies, and it just would make you want to cry. Some of the cars that were destroyed to make these movies. As much as I love a real car chase, and I don't think CGI will ever do anything like that justice, it's still really sad. But
Agreed.
a good call. It actually wasn't on my list. I'm gonna go with one that also a movie I haven't seen in a very long time, but I remember being so impressed with the car chase, and it's a movie I need to revisit because I remember loving this movie, and it's one of those things I don't know why I haven't gone back to. I'm talking about To Live and Die in L.A.
Nice.
That came out in 1985. Really good movie, but the car chase scene is really incredible. They're being chased. They're following the train. They get above in front of the train and make it over the tracks, which was really thrilling. And then they go ahead and they actually go on to the freeway in the wrong direction. And just go back and watch that scene, and the amount of planning that must have taken, and coordinated. And I'd love to know how many cars. Definitely wasn't up there with the Blues Brothers, but a lot of cars were destroyed to make that amazing car chase. And it's just one of those things that you just watch it and you're just like, wow, like I can't even imagine the amount of planning that went into something that big. And like I said, yes, you can do stuff with CGI and it's great and you can, protect the cars, but when you see the realness of this, it's just a next level thing. And it just makes you really appreciate all the planning and the stunt people and, the coordinators and the camera people. Just did an amazing job on it. And it's one of the most amazing car chases I think I've ever seen.
Very cool. I don't remember actually seeing that movie. When I was doing my research, it definitely came up as one of the movies that had, the car chase in it. And they mentioned what you had mentioned as well, where the car was going, against traffic on the freeway. And I saw bits and pieces of it. It looked pretty hairy. And yeah, the stunt people must have been just amazing. I'll have to go back and watch it because I really don't remember ever seeing it. But again, it was mentioned, so good call.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen it in years, and I don't know why. Because, like I said, I remember seeing the movie, being blown away by it. I think I probably didn't want to see it originally just because it was Los Angeles, right? And living in the Bay Area, being very anti Los Angeles, still am, at the time. It was just very strange to me to think I'd want to see that movie, but I don't know why I did. I know it was in the theaters. Might have been something that was on cable or something. And I remember seeing it in the 80s and just like, wow, that's an excellent movie. And I don't know why I've never revisited it, but I've always remembered that car chase scene. And going back and checking it out again, it certainly just did not disappoint.
Awesome. Awesome, man. My next one is one that we recently talked about in another episode. And it's sort of stretching it a little bit, but not really. It definitely qualifies still as a car chase. It just wasn't between two cars. It was between a car and a kid on a skateboard or a makeshift skateboard. So I'm talking about Back to the Future, which was released in 1985. With Biff and his cohorts are, chasing after Marty and his 1946 Ford Super Deluxe. I didn't know that until I did the research today. And it's a convertible, and of course, Marty outsmarts him on his makeshift skateboard, and Biff's car ends up with a pile of manure in the interior. So, just really, it wasn't that long of a car chase, but it was very meaningful, and definitely the way that it ended was very unique. So I had to throw that in there.
No, that's actually a good call. I remember that, him pulling the box off the makeshift or the skateboard. I guess that they used to do those things back then. And yeah, great call. Especially I remember, being so thrilled by the fact that, he's being pushed by the car on the skateboard. Excellent. And again, very comedic, the ending for it. I guess I'm going to go kind of the same route with some comedy. Um, and this is a movie that I love. You don't. I'm correct. You are completely wrong. And I'm talking about the 1980 movie Used Cars. Um, you know, the ending scene where they're trying to get the cars to the car lot to save the used car lot, and they're being chased by, was it Royale Fuchs? I think his name was. Um, it was just amazing. You had them running, falling into the other cars, trying to be hit with the when Royale was trying to hit him with the chain, him being Kurt Russell. Um, just an amazing, amazing car chase scene, and just a heck of a lot of fun because a lot of these kids that were driving these cars were in the movie supposed to be high school students that had just gotten their learner's permit or had just learned how to drive, and now they're driving balls to the wall to get across to get to this used car lot, and they're driving incredibly high speeds. It was fun too because these were pretty crappy cars, right? They weren't exactly destroying classics, so even better. It wasn't painful to watch, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. And why you don't like this movie, I'll never know.
No, it's not that I don't like it. It's just that it's okay, right? I thought it was okay. I
You said
seem
the
to
same
remember.
thing about Spinal Tap.
Yeah, but Spinal Tap sort of grew on me much more quickly than this one is or has. I remember, I want to say I remember there was a scene where somebody was jumping through a train, a boxcar with one of the cars to try and get it over to make it that the 100th car or whatever it was that they needed to get to the lot.
Yeah, so basically what happened is they were supposed to have a mile of cars, and during the drive to the used car lot, some of the cars didn't make it, so they had to have one that was driven by one of the other employees at the used car lot, who freaked out because he found out that the car was in fact red. Because the car was red, he was very superstitious, didn't want to drive
That's
it
right.
anymore. So they kind of forced him to, hunker down, man up, and jump through the trains in his red car, which he was able to do successfully. But yes, good memory on that one. That was just a great scene. That scene's hysterical.
And just one more thing, because you were mentioning that they didn't really destroy any classic cars. It wasn't a car chase scene, but it broke my heart where, they had that 57 Chevy that was the guy's pride and joy car. And the guy's like, oh, let me go ahead and test drive it. And he's like, just thrashing the hell out of it. And that broke my heart, man. Absolutely broke my heart.
Yeah, my father used to own a car very similar to that, so I'm sure if he had seen that movie, and I don't think he did, I think that would have broken his heart as well.
Alrighty, well, let's see. I am going to go with The Terminator next in 1984. So Arnold Schwarzenegger was obviously starring in there as T-800 and Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. And there was a chase scene that they had in there where Sarah Connor was driving this Chevy pickup truck, and they're like, blasting through the tunnel, and they've got like these explosives that they're throwing out the window, trying to throw Arnold Schwarzenegger's character off of the motorcycle that he was chasing him on. And it's just blowing up, and you couldn't see anything except fire. And then Schwarzenegger would just fly through it like it was unaffected. Very, very cool. That one definitely stuck with me, and I definitely wanted to call that one out.
How are you pronouncing his name?
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger.
Yes,
It sounds like you're adding an H in there.
I am. No
There's no
H?
no Schwarzenegger,
Ah, all right. Well,
not Hager. I was like, did I hear that right?
I'm melding Schwarzen and Sammy Hagar,
Okay, he's got a two lock box.
and he'll be back.
You know what's funny is I was watching it, Terminator 2, and I really love that scene where the T-1000 is chasing Edward Furlong's character on the motorcycle.
Oh yeah.
And Arnold comes out, and I was really enjoying it. And then I realized that came out in the damn 90s. So I was a little disappointed, but that one is amazing. I think for me, Terminator 2 just so outdid the original Terminator. Like I don't really go back to revisit the Terminator. I always go back to T2. And then some of those
Interesting.
movies are just god awful. So they had one a couple years ago, and I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I definitely haven't. I think I remember hearing something about it, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm sticking with comedy. I'm getting a theme here, and I just remember seeing this in the theaters and just laughing my ass off. And I'm talking about Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, 1984. So Eddie Murphy is a Detroit cop. He decides to, I guess he was trying to buy contraband cigarettes. The police come and bust it. He was undercover. The guy who's buying from is driving a semi, is spooked by it, and decides to drive away with the police giving chase. There are a lot of semis in these. I noticed in the 80s, these car chases. Like, why was a semi in everything? But I digress. But just the scene of Eddie, on the, getting knocked around in the back of that semi truck, getting thrown outside to the hitting the walls of it, and just really great comedic effect. And I'm sure it wasn't actually Eddie Murphy, but a wonderful stunt person. But it's one of those things like just I remember seeing it. Is it the best car chase ever? No, but it's probably in the 80s. I think it had one of the best comedic effects for sure.
It was definitely rated up there because again, in my searches, that came up a few times. So and I saw clips of it. I remember seeing that part where Eddie Murphy's character is hanging out of the back of the truck and sort of flipping over to the side to the outside, hanging out with one arm and stuff. And yeah, some good stunt work there for sure.
Do you
Yeah, so good call.
remember the song that was playing while all that's happening?
I want to say it was the Neutron Dance, but I don't know.
Good call. Good
Was
call.
it? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right.
I just hear that song in my head every time I think of that. Like that music and that scene just melded so perfectly together that I just every time I see it, it's like, yeah, Neutron Dance. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. After you started the show singing, I feel like I need to add some sort of musical talent of which I have none. So I feel like I've been left in the dust here. Anyway,
Oh, please go get your guitar, man. All right. So the next one I'm going to go with is I'm hoping this isn't on your list, as I was thinking it might be. It came out in 1984. The movie's called Against All Odds and has a great chase scene there between Jack Weiss, which is Jim Woods' character, and Terry Brogan, which is Jeff Bridges' character. Uh, Jake is I'm sorry, I said Jack, it was Jake. Uh, Jake is driving a Porsche 911 SC, and Terry is driving this Ferrari 308 GS. They're racing through the street. I think it was Sunset Boulevard. It was between, from what I saw, between West Hollywood and Sunset Beach, to be specific. And they've just got this awesome, montage where they're racing against each other and sort of chasing each other, and it ends where Bridges' car gets cut off and has to stop the chase because there's this big truck that gets in the way, and he just has to stop. But you have to see it. For me to describe it, it just doesn't make sense. It's definitely a more memorable car chase scene from the 80s.
Did you ever actually see the movie, or you just looked it up and watched the car chase scene?
I saw it a long time ago, man. I remember liking it, and I remember that like the very ending of it just being heart-wrenching, right? Because she's sitting there, it looks like she was getting married to somebody that maybe she didn't want to get married, and she's crying, and they have the song Against All Odds playing, and she's staring at Bridges' character, and I just remember it being very, very sad the way that it ended.
It was Rachel Ward, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Okay, I thought it was Rachel Ward. I love the Phil Collins song. I've never seen that movie. I don't
Hmm.
know why. It's one of those '80s movies I need to go back and check out. But I'll take your word for it. That's a cool car
Yeah, yeah.
scene because I can add nothing to it.
Well, I'm
Um,
sorry that I just spoiled it for you.
well, yeah, thanks. Spoiler alert. Only been out like 40 years, so it's okay. My last one is this movie. God, this is one of those movies. I don't know if you have the same thing as I do. There are a couple, there's a few movies in this world where I remember not really being that crazy about the movies, but man, I don't know why. If I caught them on TV or on cable, I would have to watch it for the remainder of the time. Like, oh, I'm gonna watch this, and it wasn't even that I enjoyed the movie that much. And this is one of those movies. Like, I don't know why I watched it so much, but I remember in the '80s, I was on cable and I watched it a ton. And that's Charlie Sheen's The Wraith. Um, so basically, Charlie Sheen's character comes back as this mysterious being. You're never quite sure what the heck's going on with him. Um, and he gets involved with, he's racing against these guys. If I remember correctly in the movie, I think that he was killed by them, and this is him coming back, kind of like a revenge thing. So there's lots of races in there, but the one I really liked is have you ever heard of oh god, an Dodge M4S?
No.
So that's the car that Charlie Sheen comes back in, and it's supposed to, be very futuristic and strange and everything. And they said the cost of that car back, I'm assuming in the '80s, was like $1.1 million.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So in the scene, he's racing a gentleman in a Pontiac Firebird, and before I guess it was a thing where they're gonna race for pink slips, and this guy wanted to, I think it was Clint Howard, wanted to put something on his car where if the guy, if they lost the race and they tried to escape, like had a kill switch on the car. And he goes, open up your car. And he opens up the back compartment and you see the engine, it looks all futuristic and everything. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. So I don't know if it was an actual engine for the car. I'm a moron with that stuff. Or if it was a $1.1 million car and that's what the engine looked like. But so Charlie Sheen's car races I want to say it was filmed in Arizona. So the shots of it are absolutely amazing. And Charlie Sheen's character, or, the car, whatever you want to say, um, ends up getting way ahead of the Pontiac, the bad guy. And of course, when he finally discovers that, where Charlie Sheen's car is, it's parked across the highway. And of course, he sees it too late, runs into it, and the car explodes. And the Wraith, Charlie Sheen's the Wraith comes back, and the car comes back completely untouched, so he can go out and extract revenge on the rest of them. Very weird movie. I think most of the reason I watched it was because of the cool car scenes, and Sherilyn Fenn. So a very young Sherilyn Fenn was in it. Beautiful, beautiful, but great scenes, and the camera work was really amazing. I don't know if that was the actual scene or not. They kept the footage, but I guess a cameraman actually died filming one of those scenes because the vehicle that they were on actually turned over.
Oh,
It was
wow.
weighted too much, and they actually lost their lives. So I don't know if it was on that particular scene or one of the scenes that was from that shot or what, but really great scene regardless. It's obviously tragic, but pretty amazing. And this car, even looking at it now in 2023, still seems pretty darn futuristic.
Man, I'll have to go check that out, man. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of that movie. The Wraith.
The Wraith, yes.
That's not race with a lisp. It's
Wraith, Wraith.
all right.
Okay,
Huh.
Schwarzenegger.
That's how I've been saying it for a lifetime, man.
Schwarzenegger, really?
Schwarzenegger, yes.
I can't believe I've never noticed that, and I've never had to correct you.
Governor Schwarzenegger. Big fan, big
Big
fan.
fan. Carrot Head, big fan, big fan.
Oh man.
I got to explain that one. So years ago, when Lewis was allowed to go to Vegas, um, we went to Vegas one time, and I were we at the beach club?
We were.
So this had to be what, mid mid '90s,
Yeah, maybe mid to late
probably like.
maybe late mid to late 90s because it was after I was divorced.
Okay, so mid to late '90s, we went to this club called the Beach in Las Vegas. A lot of fun. If you've ever been there, well, it no longer exists, but if you had been there, please put it in the comments. I want to know. Um, the image of one night them throwing on the song Tequila, and I had lost Lewis in the club, and I was like, God, I wonder where he is. And seeing some woman in a bikini with chaps, and she had tequila and as in her what would you call it?
Holsters?
Holsters. Thank you. It escapes me. This is what happens when you're old. Grabs a tequila bottle out of her holster, is holding Lewis, holding him up and pouring tequila into his mouth. And I knew very quickly that the night was going to go very wrong from there. And I think I have photos of it somewhere. So if you ask really nicely, I'll send you the photos. I'll give me your email and I'll send them. But yeah, and so we were there one night, might have even been the same night, and Lewis goes, "Oh, look, it's that comedian, Carrot Head." I'm like, Carrot Head? And I look and I see Carrot Top. I'm like, you mean Carrot Top? He goes, "Oh yeah, I was gonna go up and say, hey, Carrot Head, big fan, big fan." So anyway, a little bit of our '90s Vegas debauchery. We got a little too much '90s in here today. Maybe it's just
That's all right.
slam the store shut.
All right, man. I was gonna go with Mad Max, but I'm not gonna go with Mad Max. I'm gonna go with a lesser known movie called Hollywood Nights. It was in 1980 that it came out. It had Michelle
Tony
Pfeiffer in
Danza.
it. Pardon it?
Tony Danza.
And Tony Danza. You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Wow, wow. Fran Drescher was in it. And
Blackman.
what's that?
Bobby Fleckman. You know Bobby.
Yes, Bobby Flackman.
Yes.
So the reason that I was so enamored with this movie was because at the time I was in middle school and there was this magazine that I subscribed to called Popular Hot Rodding. And they were building out this 57 Chevy, this yellow 57 Chevy. And after they were done with it, it was actually featured in this movie Hollywood Nights, and it was in one of the race scenes where it was running racing against this AC Shelby Cobra. and it lost in the race, but it was still really cool to see it because I'd read about this thing and I saw how they put it together and all the, the stats and the engine specs and everything. I just sort of followed the build. And then to see it in the movie was really, really cool. And it's something that just sticks with me. I was just always upset that it lost the race, but it was really cool to actually see this thing that I'd seen sort of followed being built in this movie. So it was just really cool and very memorable for me.
I think people are going to be upset we didn't include Mad Max, probably the most iconic. And I don't even have a drink. Um, yeah, car chase scene in the '80s, and we omitted it. That's what we do. We're rebels over here.
We played our own Piper or
Yeah,
something
we're
like
going to
that.
talk about the Wraith and Hollywood Nights instead. Yeah, everyone knows about Mad Max or the Road Warrior. We're going to give you something new. That's what we do.
There
And
you
we're going to
go.
give you the new pronunciation for Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, so we'll do that. All right. I think we're almost out of time here, brother. Anything you want to add before we sign this bad boy off?
Nope, nope. This has been cool as it always has, and thanks, John.
All right. Well, as always, we appreciate you guys watching. Please give us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll be back next week with something that I'm sure will be very 80s filled. Lewis, take us out, brother.
Peace out.
Thank you, guys.